Hey everyone, Paul Pomerleau here, and this is my 2014 Victory Cross Country Tour. Today I'm going to be removing the front wheel and I'm going to be putting on a new tire, new balancers, and then reinstalling it. The bike is in gear, so the back tire won't move. I've left the trunk and the saddlebags on for maximum weight back there. I'm going to use a scissor jack underneath the engine, and when I jack it up, the front wheel will come off the ground and I'll be able to remove it like that. So let's get started. Now there is no just one way of doing this. Some people want to get down and dirty, pull the axle out, drop the tire and go. That's fine. Others will remove the brake calipers, and some go the extra mile to remove the fender, making the wheel coming in and out very easily. I'm not quite going to go that far with the fender. I'm going to leave it on. However, once the wheel is off, I'm going to wash the inside of it just to get all the mud and everything out of it. But I will be removing my calipers, 2 bolts right here. I'm going to be removing them because I like to wipe everything down, clean it up, inspect the pads, go a little bit more than just removing the tire. This is an 8mm hex head socket. I'm going to remove these 2 bolts right here, and I'm going to take the brake caliper off. Some people like to leave it hang by the hose. I don't really like doing that. It could flop around, scratch my fender. So I'm going to take some string, tie it around the caliper, and hang it off the side of my bike somewhere for safety. This is a 6mm hex head socket. We have 2 pinch bolts at the front of the fork. We're going to loosen them up. We do not have to remove them. On this particular model year, my axle uses a 14mm hex head socket. These things are readily available in any hardware store. However, previous years, these were 16mm. They were not that easy to find. So to get around this problem, what you could do is pick up one of these. This is a coupler nut, and it happens to fit right inside. You put a socket on the end of it, and you can tighten and loosen this all you want. If you can't find one that fits a 16mm axle, what you could simply use is a nut and bolt. Get 2 nuts, jam them together, turning them in opposite directions, and it will fit inside. You use a wrench, go on the inside fastener, and turn counterclockwise to loosen it. That way you keep tightening these fasteners together. When you want to install the axle, use your socket at the end of a torque wrench, use the outside fastener, and tighten it down. That way you keep these 2 fasteners tight together. So now I'm going to use my 14mm hex head socket, and I'm going to loosen the axle. You may require a bit of force to do this. Before I go any further, I'm going to use the jack and I'm going to raise up the front just enough to take the weight off the axle. The tire will still be on the ground, but just lightly. So now with the weight off the axle, I can just take this whole thing and slide it out. Now that the axle's out, I'm going to jack up the bike high enough for the wheel to clear. Make note, you got 2 spacers, one on each side of the rim. They're different widths, so make sure you keep the right one on the right side. I jacked up the bike just a little bit. I'm going to pull out the coupler. There's 2 of them. This is the short one. There's a longer one on the other side. So the long one is on the left side of the bike. Remember to put them back that way. So now with the wheel removed, the next step is putting on the new tire and the balancers. But I'm going to make that a separate video because putting everything together is just going to make this one way too long. So you can click on the link at the bottom of the screen, and that will bring you to where I'm changing the tire and adding on the balancers. And then we'll come back here and we'll assemble the whole thing back together. So stay tuned for the assembly part. Okay, welcome back. As you can see, we have the new tire and new balancers installed on the wheel. Now we'll simply put it back together. So the first thing I'm going to do is jack up the bike high enough for the wheel to pass underneath the fender. Then I'll start gradually lowering it down, and I'm going to stop when the bottom of the forks is just above the hole for the axle in the wheel. That way I can put in my spacers. When putting your wheel in, make sure your ABS ring is on the left-hand side. When I removed the axle earlier, I took out the spacers that were on the wheel, and you can see they're two different sizes. So I put them back on the axle for safekeeping in the proper order. The long one's on the left side and the short one's on the right side. This way, there's no chance of me forgetting which way they go. I'm going to put some moly-infused grease on the spacers before putting them inside the wheels. Any grease will work, but this is the type that I'm using. Now I'm going to lower the bike until the axle lines up perfectly with the wheel. Now I'm going to put grease along the smaller part of the axle. I am not going to put any on the larger part. That goes inside the fork where the pinch bolts are, so I want to keep that clean. And now I'll simply insert the axle into the entire front wheel system. I'm going to use a block of wood and gently tap the axle into the fork. And now I'm going to tighten down the axle to 52 foot-pounds using my torque wrench. The two pinch bolts get tightened down to 18 foot-pounds. If you did remove your front brake calipers, they're going to go back on, tightened down to 31 foot-pounds. There it is, all done. Good job. Before you take your bike out on the road, verify everything. Turn your wheels far left, far right. Check for any wiring jamming. Check your brakes, make sure they work here. Spin your tire. Make sure everything is good. You would rather find it out here than out on the road. Thank you very much for watching my video. If you like them, please hit that big red subscribe button down below. Ride safe and have fun.